Hey guys, welcome back to Abnormality. Your host, Big Tony.
Kent.
Tonight we have another one of our telephone interviews with a group out of Victoria Island, British Columbia. So what do you know about the group?
The group, I don't know much about, but I do know that it's a group called Unearthing Shadows Paranormal. And on the phone tonight we have their founder, Andrea Bailey. So,
are you with us?
I am. Hello.
Outstanding. So we're going to just kind of ask you a few questions. We hope you're ready to talk and give us some information so we can learn a little bit about you.
Sure, that'd be great.
So how did you get into this industry? What was your drive to get into ghost hunting?
Well, I mean, it started off as like a childhood interest. Like I just always kind of had spirits just kind of find me.
Okay.
And it just kind of expanded as I got older. The one milestone was when I moved away for a while, and when I came back, I rented a house, and it was just me living there. And there was a pretty intense haunting, something that I still have a hard time believing the extent of what I went through. And here, it wasn't really acceptable to talk about it. Like, people knew what was going on and fully acknowledged that my place was haunted.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing was, everybody's like, you can't talk about it. People will think you're crazy. And so I really had to dive into it and figure out what I was dealing with, had to figure out how to defend myself, and really just find out what was going on. So after I went through that, because the main thing for me was, I'm like, I need help. And then after going through it, I was like, other people are obviously experiencing this, and I don't want them to feel alone or to feel like they can't talk about this stuff. So that kind of started me on my journey to really jump into the field and be a professional.
Okay. How many people are in your group?
There's 3 core members. There's 7 in total, and then there's a few people that kind of help us on occasion.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay. Have you ever encountered something paranormal that you would consider dangerous?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, on several occasions. One of the abandoned lighthouses here on the island, there's not exactly sure what it is. It's not human. That thing it's not for the faint of heart. It's definitely got an evil tone to it. It likes to cause a lot of, not significant harm, but it definitely likes to push people's boundaries. And I firmly believe that can be a lot more dangerous if the right situation presented itself. When I was investigating in England, there was over there, I found the energy is quite different over there, and obviously over here too. But there's been some human spirits that are just not nice people, and they were quite dangerous, like very easily to take somebody over if they wanted to. And I witnessed one entity within 15 minutes possess 2 people, and they were, in my opinion, legitimate possessions. So we definitely do encounter some dangerous situations and entities at times.
Wow. Okay. So in your experience, what has been the main reason why a person would be hunting a ghost?
Whether it be hunted by one?
No, why they would go out and hunt ghosts? What, in your experience?
Oh.
Why would people do that? What are some of the reasons?
I think there's a few reasons. I think, like us, we do it because we want to help both sides. Like, obviously, if a spirit is making itself known, and it's not always the case, but they're looking for help or attention, or, they need help as well. Or there's negative entities that are affecting the living, and they need help as well. So we're in it for that reason. We're not in it to make money. We're just in it because we want to learn more. We want people to take this more serious and validate that the paranormal does exist and that we want it to be a recognized science. I think a lot of groups and a lot of individuals do it for that reason as well. I think some people do it for their personal experiences, and I do think there's some people that are doing it just for the ego, or for that claim that, I caught, that one apparition that the whole world's going to believe in ghosts now, or just to get that TV show. So I think those are kind of the main reasons why people do it.
Okay. Obviously, there's not too many details on this next question that you could probably give out, but what is your most memorable story about your hunt so far?
Honestly, I've had a few because I just find them so different every time. But one of the more recent ones that has really stuck with me, our old courthouse. Unfortunately, it's closed now due to the building being it's falling apart. It was built in the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
But I spent a lot of time there. I helped another team. We did public events there, so people that wanted to experience safe, hauntings in a safe environment could come there. And plus, I did a lot of research there, and my team investigated there quite a bit too. So I was really familiar with the spirits there. This one little girl started coming forward, and I started knowing her as Elizabeth. Now, I don't know for sure if that's her name, but some of the, speaking with her in the spirit box, she would respond to Elizabeth and would say that's her name. And more pieces that I got together, I do believe that she's off one of the ships that sunk around here. I have some evidence to link her to the SS Blanche that went down off the coast of the island here years and years ago. And probably the last encounter I had with her, it was pretty emotional for me because, I've got to know her for a very long time, and she was very apparent, and just as soon as I was there, she would just come make herself known. And the thing that was heartbreaking for me was that she was always looking for her mother. So when we knew that the building was going to close, we went there a couple of times to try to help pass over or cross over the spirits that we could help. And she was one of them. And once we did that, we never made communication with her again. But she was looking for her mother. And when we got some communication coming forward that her mother came to get her, and we could hear like a conversation on the ghost box. And
Wow.
so for me, that really stuck out. And I hope she crossed over, and I hope she found her mother. We believe that she did, but to me, that was one of the most memorable ones like that. Even to this day, I get a little teary-eyed talking about it because, you feel bad about, as much as a physical child would be scared alone here. I mean, I'm sure the spirit form, she would just be scared, being in this building for 100 years on her own. And, not to mention it was, had the museum artifacts that I believe she came with. And then it also used to be a jail. There was a gallows, a courthouse. So she's mixed in with all these darker, like more mischievous entities, ones that have more of a colorful past. So that's one of the ones that sticks out most with me.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So, as a ghost hunting professional, what is some advice that you would give to somebody who was wanting to start getting into this field? Well,
the thing I always ask first is why. Why do you want to get involved? And really consider your intent. I always caution, because I get asked quite a bit about people wanting to start in new groups. And I don't try to discourage them, but I really try to get them to think about why and to really understand what they're getting into, that there's physical risks, there's mental risks, there's emotional risks, there's all these things that take a toll on you and the people around you. And I always suggest that get as much knowledge as you can. Start off by reading books, just asking as many questions as you can. Then find a group, a like-minded group that you trust, and volunteer with them. So you just ask if you can go on a few investigations just to get some experience. And then once you've really got a good understanding, start learning how the equipment works, and don't just go out to do it to see what you see on TV. Understand the whole, prism of paranormal investigating, because it's a lot more than what people realize. And then once you do that, make sure you get a good group of people that you trust and that are like-minded, and then venture out on your own. But I always tell people it's quite a lengthy process. Don't think you're just gonna, start doing it. And the other thing too, I always tell everybody is have respect. Have respect for the people that you're approaching, the businesses that you're approaching, and the spirits, because you obviously don't want to make it worse for them when you investigated and upset the spirits. You also don't want to upset the spirits who may not be causing a problem, and you want to have a safe situation for you and your team. So those are typically the things that I suggest to people when they ask me.
Okay.
And one thing I just want to touch on, kind of like what you just said in your answer there, is for for people watching at home, they need to understand that these guys on the TV show, it's not show up, we go in, we do a 12-hour hunt, and it's good to go. It takes 2 to 3 weeks for them to film one episode. So take that into consideration. If you're trying to go out to do this to make money, just know that it's not you show up, you get your results, and you go home. It's time consuming when you're doing this, so you really need to evaluate your position. I mean, that's it.
Well, I agree. I always tell people too, it's kind of like, if you walk into, say, Starbucks, for example, you can't just stand in the middle of the business and be like, okay, guys, everybody has to start being my friends, dance for me, right? Like, you got to build some relationship as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Living or dead.
Right?
Building relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what is one thing that you and your group would say makes you guys successful in your area?
I think the main thing that makes us successful is that we're sincere. Like, we have empathy. We try to understand all points. We don't go in with an ego, and we also really put our time in. We put our time into come up with as much research and fact verifying as we can. Like, we really are thorough in what we do, and we're also, if we're wrong, we admit it, and then if we're right and we really believe that what we found is credible evidence, like, we'll stand by it. But we don't ever try to force anybody's or our opinions on anybody.
Okay.
We just are very much like, here's the information that we have. We're being very thorough. We try to fact verify everything as best as we can. You believe what you want, but this is what we can bring forward, and we find that's how we gain people's trust. And so with that, I don't know, I just think it helps us in the sense of being successful, that we build really good relationships with people so we can get into places that a lot of people are turned away from. And then also, too, when we go to a location, we're very respectful. We don't go in, we don't start provocating. We try to communicate with the spirits and say, look, we know a lot of this equipment is items you probably have never seen. It's not here to hurt you, and we try to tell them how to use it. And we're patient. We're not demanding of them. We're very, if you'd like to come forward, we're here. If not, we'll respect your boundaries. And so I think those things have made us successful.
Okay. So how do you and your team deal with objections and skeptics?
Well, we just come from the point of view, like, everybody obviously is going to believe something different. We don't ever shove down anybody's throat what we believe. We're just very, this is what we believe, this is what we do, we stand behind it, and we just try to give information so people can make their own minds up, but we hope that we give them enough information and credible evidence and really show that we believe in what we do, so that maybe they'll start questioning if they are skeptical, that, okay, well, these are just normal people, and they've checked everything off the list to prove what they're doing, and maybe there is something to it. So that's typically how we do it. We don't ever jump on anybody, and of course there are the people that make fun of us, and we just ignore them and kind of say, well, come on an investigation with us. We'll happily show you.
Excellent. That's awesome.
I think in every industry, every group or area of the United States or wherever you are, you get those skeptics that just make fun of you, but realistically, when you offer them a chance to come out on an investigation, they're too scared.
Maybe they're just making fun of you, Ken.
Well, I am kind of weird. So, next, what is your vision of the industry in the future?
Well, what I'm seeing right now is I'm seeing that there's more of it seems like it's going on an uphill again for the interest. Like, I do think that there's going to be a few more TV shows popping out. I think also worldwide, not just here in North America. I think there's going to be a bit more of, I'm noticing that more people are trying to do more like public events and those types of things, like paranormal conferences and those types of things. I do think in a way that is also going to help kind of what we're trying to go for, and to really, like, get it to be a recognized science, like so that it'll be taken serious, and maybe even some of the universities are quietly looking into it now. Even the government here is looking at doing a policy, for example, for paranormal investigators, which I think is great, because in some small way they're acknowledging that, okay, we have to do a formal government policy for paranormal investigators. So I think the industry is going to help the science part of the paranormal field to advance as well. So I think in the next 5 years, things are going to advance pretty quickly, and that it's going to be a lot more recognized and way more socially accepted.
Excellent. So what are the goals for your group in the near future?
Well, like a lot of the other teams, we have a very different take. We would love to do a paranormal reality show here in Canada. Mm-hmm. We want to do something that's very, and I say this with all due respect, but very real, or a very real take on paranormal investigating from beginning to end. So it shows exactly what we do, not just like the Hollywoodization of it.
The eye makeup and the too small T-shirts?
Yeah, exactly.
That's one of our favorites. Not really, I'm just kidding.
So that is something we'd like to do, but our thing is that we really just want to support the field and really have it as a recognized field. Like, we would like some universities to step forward and say, okay, we want to put funding and grants towards the paranormal studies, and that's really what our focus is.
Okay.
Are you wanting your group to grow anymore? And I already know the answer to the last part. And are you wanting to travel across the nation?
More so than, because you said you've been in England, right?
Yeah, we've actually, for the most part, like our home base is Victoria and Vancouver Island and whatnot. But you know, we've got some opportunities coming up in the U.S. Across Canada. We've been invited back to England.
Wow.
There's a few other places. Like over in Romania, we have some opportunities. So we're currently trying to figure out ways to come up with all this money.
Yeah.
But yeah, we absolutely would love to. We really try to push past limits.
Okay.
And so we would like to go to some of the more extreme places, but I mean, it's not our goal just to investigate those places, but we just figure if we have these opportunities, why not take them? So
Sure.
Absolutely, we'd love to advance. The core group would really like to do that, and then some of the other team members that really aren't interested in the travel, I would like to get them a bit more trained up and established so that they can still continue on with the local investigations just when we're not able to, just to make sure that we're giving everybody what we can and all the help that they need when they need it. Okay.
So what would be your dream place to go to do an investigation?
Oh, there's so many.
Well, give me a few. Oh, give me a few then.
Okay.
You're in charge. You tell me what you want.
Like many others, I would love to investigate all of Vlad Tepes' castles. That's just a personal interest I had of knowing who this man was when I was a small child without actually knowing who he was. So I'd love to go to the Hoyugachu Forest. I really would like to go to the hospital in the Rock in Germany. That place, I think, would be a really fascinating place to go to. And also with all and I've heard about so many trapped spirits there. It would be really nice to see if we could help rescue some of them.
Okay.
And oh gosh, I could go on and on and on, but those are some of the main places I would really like to go to.
Amazing.
Okay. So here's a question I have for you. Do you believe that in certain locations, or that maybe in all locations, that the reason why some of these spirits are trapped is because there may be an entity there that is holding them?
Yes, I do believe that. Some of the places we've been to, one example was the old courthouse here. There's definitely some of the people that were associated with the courthouse that are keeping certain spirits there because they still feel that those are their prisoners. I do believe there was a place I visited in England as well. There was a very dominant male entity, and he seemed to be from like the 17th, 18th century, and he just seemed to be like, you are my slaves, you spirits are staying here, and he was very possessive over them, and it came through when anybody tried to communicate with them. He would either the physical person would be affected or those entities would step back and would cower. So I 100% believe that that's the case in some situations.
Okay. How do you deal with things that seem to want to follow you home? Because as of late, we've kind of been having some experiences with our crew up here of it not staying where we found it.
Funny, I've been actually getting a lot of calls. Pretty much every home case I've been getting lately is from somebody following them home. I've been really fortunate. My team's been really fortunate. We just set a lot of boundaries before we go to investigation. We also do all the the silly things, whether they work or not, but we take our shoes off before we come into the house, and we do use a lot of crystals and just have a really strong mind, just to set up the boundaries that you are not coming into our house. We also communicate that too. We do a bit of an open and closing ceremony. My belief is that, you know, if you can, whatever you believe in, if you can just call in like that white energy and just kind of set barriers around your house and just imagine like a white ball of that energy that you believe in, that you're taking claim over your property and pushing everything out of your house. I do think there's a lot of crystals that really seem to help. Smudging helps sometimes too in the right situation. Pendants, those are just some of the typical things we've done. So none of us have had a problem following us home, and we've dealt with some pretty intense entities.
Okay. So the kind of go on with what Tony just touched on. Here recently, we did an investigation that kind of, I wouldn't say it sideswiped us, but it was nothing what we were expecting. I mean, we got told there was a couple of entities, and we probably, I would say there's at least 15, 20 in this location.
Wow.
And one of them was a very dominant male that made his presence known right away. But all the female motherly figures in our group have been having weird dreams and visions and things happening around them in the last 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, 4 or 5 days
since the investigation, and none of us guys are. It's not happening to any of the guys in the group, but all the women, like the motherly figures, it's constant. So that's kind of why I asked, and what Tony asked was, you know, what do you do about that? Because we're trying to help them out at the same time while trying to figure out what could have happened.
Okay, you know, and funny enough, like we've encountered that a few times with families where like this really dominant male spirit goes after the women. And the best advice that we've given that really helped is to tell the women, you need to take control and you need to command that spirit to back off and really set your boundaries and mean it. And we found that's been the best defense. One case I had recently, the spirit was targeting the mother and the small child, and as soon as we gave her that power, being like, this is your home, and the spirit is just trying to manipulate you to feed off you from your energy. And once we did that, along with like setting some boundaries in the house and smudging and crystals as well. But as soon as she changed her attitude and really commanded that spirit to back off and just like, no, you're not letting me dream like this anymore. I'm not letting you do sleep paralysis. You've got to get out of my house. It took about a little over a week, but the spirit finally left. Yeah. So we have found that that's the best. I mean, it's a little bit tricky. I mean, I know every case is a bit different, but typically lavender water is also a really good thing to have around.
Okay.
The other thing too is cinnamon in the house. Spirits don't like cinnamon, so like drinking cinnamon tea for the person and like just having cinnamon scents in the house, that really chases out a lot of spirits that maybe don't have a direct attachment, but that makes it a really uninhabitable place for them. Like they just don't like it. Okay. We've had a lot of success with that too.
Okay. And then one other thing I've also heard, and I have yet to prove it, but because nobody will ever let me do it. There's actually, I've been told by some very in-depth spiritual people, that the incense out there, dragon's blood, will actually cleanse your house too, because they don't like the smell of it. And have you heard anything like that?
I know a few people around here that have used various incense. I believe that's one of the ones I've heard. I've never used incense only just because I'm really allergic to them, which sounds bad, but I have heard numerous people around here use various incense and said that it's worked really well.
Okay.
Okay.
But I'm sure it's probably the same concept as the smudging, but
Okay.
All right, Andrea. Well, that's going to be the end of the interview, but I already know you want to come and investigate the Oregon State Hospital, so we'll work on that off the show here.
So if we get that put together, you're going to come down?
oh, absolutely. I'll be there the next day.
Outstanding. We really appreciate your time. I know you guys are busy up there, and taking time out for our little show here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was really nice to talk to you guys.
All right. We'll talk to you in the future, all right?
All right. Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Take care.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
It's fascinating. All right. So amazing take on things. Some of the things they talked about, the incense and the different things that that she mentioned. I think it's fascinating to learn. And I know that Victoria is, I've been there a couple of times, and it's just a very old part of the world. Even though it's not as old as some of the European nations, you just get kind of that old feeling of the buildings and things like that. It's just incredible.
I think I need to move to Canada. Sounds like they're pretty open-minded to the paranormal up there.
Yeah, I mean, they're working on legislature. I mean, we can't even get anybody to acknowledge that it's still kind of a, they laugh at it.
You mentioned paranormal here in the United States, you get the Men in Black showing up.
Exactly. Little guys taking you out to the rubber rooms.
Yeah, I don't like
it's
that.
Incredible. All right, so I'm Big Tony.
I'm Kent.
And thank you for joining us on this edition of Abnormality. We'll see you guys next time.